Hey, Farmer's Corner, or should we say Induna Wengombe? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Before I kick off the video, I just want to say thank you very much to the various people that have liked and subscribed the page. It's very healthy and actually very pleasing when I see the numbers go up. So, I want to touch on leaks, for example. I remember when I started farming here in the commercial area, just giving some anecdotes from when I obtained the plot this that, and I started commercially, and I started breeding cattle commercially. I didn't know about leaks. I didn't know what leaks are. I didn't know what they're for. I didn't understand what you need, why cattle need leaks. I didn't understand that. So when we started this journey of farming, I was introduced to licks, various licks for cattle. There was one we liked, which was Eco Grasveld. That was what we loved to buy. And we would buy it a lot. We just buy Eco Gras. Come summer, come winter, come rainy season, come dry season, we're just buying Eco Grasveld. And with buying this Eco Grasveld, I thought, no, this is the best lick that is available on market. We are doing something here. Till I started noticing that the cattle would sometimes lose condition. And I would be wondering now, why are this cattle losing condition when there is grazing? Until a person at Agra sat me down and was like, no, Mitchell, licks are like, they're different licks. They're different licks that are used for different seasons. They're your summer licks. These licks have phosphate in them to help your cattle be able to graze the grass and to be able to extract energy from the grass and be able to break it down. Because you notice usually when the grass is green and you've gotten good rains in your area, the cattle would start having diarrhea. They have running tummy. So then he would advise us. We'd always go to this one salesperson there at Agra, and it would always be so nice and be like, yeah, I think this is the time you use this lick. There's phosphate in it. Winter, he would say, use winter lick. And I'd be like, okay. Then I'd be like, okay, this is the lick, the phosphate lick we're using for summer. Use it, even in the dry season in winter. Then in winter, using the same lick, you'd see sometimes even the cows, particularly some of these commercial cows, would not want to lick that lick. You would throw a whole bucket full, put it properly, equally space it in the bucket and leave it there. And then you'd be like, okay, the cows will come and do their thing. And then you come back and you can find the cows didn't do their thing. You would even come find sometimes the chickens, if you have chickens on your farm, are the ones that are in the licking trough and are busy scrapping and, messing about. And sometimes guinea fowls would even come. Wild fowls would come. So I'd be like, oh, this cattle, why don't they want to lick this lick, which they were going crazy about they were going crazy about last month or so when it was raining. Then I'd go back to the salesperson. I'll be like, but that lick you gave me, my cows don't want it. Then it's like, yeah, they wouldn't want it because it's the summer lick. You need to get a winter lick. A winter lick would have things like protein, urea, if I can just remember from what I was being told that day. And the reason why they would put these ingredients would be when winter comes around and the grass dries, your grass, the nutritional value in your grass, such as your protein and so forth in the grass, would now come from the grass stems and go to the roots of the grass. So when your cattle are busy, you'd see your cows are busy grazing this grass, busy eating it, but they're not getting fat. There are some of them either get more skinnier or don't really improve on condition. So then I was there like, oh, but chief, what's going on? Then they tell me, no, that lick you have, Mitchell, is a summer lick. You need to get a winter lick. So we buy the winter lick. As I said, it has urea and has protein in it. So now we give this. The cows go crazy. They run to the bulls. They're pushing each other. They are, literally, just heads butting, and cattle are trying to push each other way to get to it. So he said, no. The reason being that why we would tell you to use the winter lick is because it has the protein, it has urea and other ingredients that are there, such as if I can remember, if I can remember correctly, it's been a while. It's got different ingredients that the cattle need right now during this time of winter when the grass is dry, to help the cattle be able to break down and digest the grass much more easier, and able also to get out the nutrients out of the grass much more easy. Because remember, the grass is dry, it's winter. So this is why you should change lick. And I was like, okay, I'm learning something new. And then when my cows were calving, I would still keep them on the normal lick that I'd keep the cattle. without being aware that when the cows have calved and they're having calf suckling from them, they actually require a different type of lick. This lick is to help them maintain body, because you should remember, when a cow is in a commercial setting like the one I was farming, we would keep the calves at the kraal because we had a problem with jackals, and we had a problem with sometimes we'd have brown hyenas. So we'd keep them at the kraal. Our cows didn't go far. They would just go very nearby, graze a bit, and then come back because of the motherly instinct. So now they'd come back and they would not really graze. So now we need to give them a lick that could help them from the little grazing they're getting, assist them also to get some body weight. And this is where we'd use production lick, which I think, if I can recall, was your P6. If I'm not mistaken, is your P6. But you guys can go to Agri and go verify this. I'm sure the salespeople are there and will assist you, because I can't really recall that well. I think it was your P6. That was our production lick. We would give that to our cows that have calves, that are suckling from them, because you have noticed, I'm sure most of you have noticed as cattle farmers, that when some cows give birth and they get calves that suckle from them, they completely lose condition. They lose weight, they lose condition. You're seeing the bones are sticking out, the ribs, and they don't look nice on the eye value. They look bad. And so you'd give them production lick, which would help them. Another word for production lick is a rounding off lick, which would help them gain weight and maintain their body and not look so bad because they got calves suckling on them. Another one that production lick is also used for people that use, I know people that make slaughter oxen and sell winners would usually use the production lick to throw in the production lick to round off the winners. Like when they're preparing to take the winners to market, they would give them that lick to help them now get the weight. Because as I said, it's very attractive when you see an oxen that is lacquer fat, that is round, not something that is bony, but something that is lacquer round. So that was a lick that we would give. I remember that was one of my favorite that I also used to like giving, particularly in the dry season when we were experiencing the drought in 2015, when we had one of the worst droughts in the country. But what I was fortunate that I had in Wordvlei, in the space that I was occupying during that time, was there were bushes. There were these bushes, shrubs, various green shrubs, and the cattle could convert them. So what I would do was because now, when animals are browsing, because of the material they're browsing, it differs from your normal grass. So it might require more work. So now, just to help them be able to digest and break down that browsing material they are getting from the different trees, acacias, and various shrubs and bushes that are on my farm, on the place I was leasing at that time, I would give them Bosfotier, which is bush improver. Bush improver lick, which was a lick that I like to give during that dry period, because the cattle were browsing. They were not eating grass, so they were browsers now. So it is specially made to help the cattle to help aid the cattle with the browsing process, to help them be able to browse and break down this material they're busy eating. There was one that I used to like throwing out every time. For my bulls, I used to give them Beef Pro 14, Beef Pro 14, if I remember properly. It was bull corals. It was the bull pellets, or in Afrikaans they'd say corals. I used to give it to them usually when they would come out from the female cows, when I would take them out of the breeding period. When they're no more working with the females, I put them one side after they've done what they've done, usually around about my breeding season, which I usually used to start early November. Oh, wait, was it? No, I used to start my breeding calendar. I used to start it in June. I used to start it in June, July, if I remember properly. Because remember, a cow carries for 9 months. So I'd always count and actually try to predict when cows would be born. So I'd always used to try and predict when it was nice and green and there was enough grazing for the cattle. So that's one thing I used to do. The Beef Pro 14 bull pellets that I used to give my bulls when they come from the cows, to just help them to aid them with the recovery process, them recovering their muscle, recovering their body, recovering their weight. Because you should remember, when these bulls are put amongst cattle to breed, and you're putting 2 bulls or 3 bulls in there, it's constant competitions. These guys are not grazing, they're not stopping to graze, they're just doing what they have to do, they're breeding. And particularly in the communal areas where we do not have camps, such as in the NCA, where we don't have camps, where our cattle just walk. And now you have cows that are in heat. You'd have your bull fighting a few minutes, after fighting, mounting, mounting, going back to fight. So they're not really focusing on eating. They're just focusing on breeding and who can be successful to see most of the cows in the kraal. Yeah, beside licks, there were also feeds that I used to give. You know, I had to learn to buy grass. I never, you know, when that switch came from being a communal land farmer to being a commercial land farmer, it's really just a major, it's like, how do I say, it's a culture shock. You go from just knowing that, open the gate, let the cattle walk. Let them walk to whatever point they walk and graze there, and then they come back home. But when you're on a commercial piece of land and it's fenced off, your cattle don't have the luxury to walk 10 Ks or 20 Ks, depending how big the farm is, but they don't have a big space to walk to. They're in a they're in a closed off area. So you have to start doing supplementations. As I said, you buy your licks, you buy your cattle feeds. Some farmers would even go as far as producing their own cattle feeds with some of the material they had. Some guys would make silage, and produce other feeds. Other people would use, what is this? Sunflower seeds and produce feeds. Everybody had their own ingredients. I was buying Lucerne. I was buying Lucerne during the most driest, like I said, during the drought. When I was experiencing the drought, I was doing a mixture of Lucerne and grass. Sweet grass, which I was buying in Agra, which was now the buffalo grass. I believe it was buffalo grass. I would take that and we'd do mixtures. We would break it apart, throw it into the cement mixer. With the cement mixer running, we would mix it, automated with the cement mixer to mix the Lucerne in the buffalo grass as supplementations for our livestock, particularly when it was the driest and we had cows that had just given birth. And as I said, with most of the cows, when they give birth, they don't go very far. They don't even go graze. They just want to stay with their newborn calves. So we had to do all that. You know, we had to do that extra feeding, spending more money. There was a period of time that I was buying close to 50 to 60 or 100 bales of grass monthly just to be able to supplement. So that 2015 drought really showed us flames. Another thing that I learned about the 2015 drought that hit was you always need to be resilient and you always need to be quick on your feet. You know, we all love our animals, we all love our cattle. We love our cattle and we always want to try and keep as much as we can. But you also need to be honest with yourself to sit down and say, if drought comes, will this cow really survive a drought? Or do I need to cull it or do I need to sell it? So I limit the spending on feeds and licks on my livestock. So you also need to be able to do that. But licks and feeds are very important in your cattle business. I know it's still a concept probably, in most communal areas that is not really looked at. We still do the traditional way of cattle farming or livestock farming. Even for your small stock, there are various licks you can give. Production licks, licks before they give birth, lick when they give birth, licks to help your animals recover during a dry period, licks to improve your browsing for your livestock. So these things are important. They are important. I know in a lot of communal areas, the only lick probably most people know is just a brick of salt. And for them, that's enough. Salt is important. Yes, it's important even for us human beings. We need sodium in our systems to help us function. Muscles, blood, veins, keep our veins healthy. It's the same thing for cattle. And you'd notice that when cattle don't have salt, you would find some of them would start licking the tree trunk, the bark. Some of them would start eating sand to trying to get sodium out of it. But cattle do get sodium out of the food they eat. Usually the grass or the browsing they do, the roughage they're getting in, that's how they get their salt. But when they're not getting enough of it, they would start doing these very interesting things. You'd see them sometimes even lick sand. You'd see them sometimes even try and drink another cow's pee just to get the sodium. So it's very important that you put the sodium, the brick salt in your kraal. But rather than just putting the brick salt and saying, leak, that's the leak, it's done. You need to still sit down and say, I need to buy other type of licks for different seasons. Like I said, you need your summer lick for summer season when the grass is green. You need your winter lick for when the grass goes dry. You need your production lick when you are trying to round off your winners or your tollies or your oxen for slaughter, or also your pregnant cows. Or you need to buy cow and calf lick to assist the mother cow to be able with milk production and also retaining a condition. So these are some of the things that you might need to start considering you might need to start considering to buy lick rather than just saying, We don't need this leek. A brick salt is enough. You need to buy more leek. And what I would always tell people, when you go buy leek in a shop, your agricultural shops, Agra, Cap Agri, Feedmaster, or private, sorry, or private sellers of leeks, private traders, always try and buy the pre-mixed ones. Don't buy the concentrate unless you can make sure that you follow the ingredients that are put on the, you follow the instructions of how to mix a concentrate. Because with some concentrated leeks, like I said, if it's a 50 kilogram of concentrated, let's say summer leek, phosphate leek with phosphate in it, you need a 50 kilogram of salt, and you need to be able to mix it properly to make sure that the salt and the leek is 50-50, so the kettles can lick it and enjoy it. And also, when you're working with some of these leeks, I think the leek which had, was it the phosphate one and the urea leek? But yeah, between the two of them. But let me say all leeks. Never feed your cattle or never allow your cattle to come close to leek that has gotten wet. Whether it has gotten wet from rain or whether it has gotten wet from you as the farmer trying to mix it and pouring in water. And you should never do that with leeks. You should keep them dry. This is why they call dry leeks. I remember there was an incident a few years back. I think a farmer in the north of the country, the government were giving them some feeds and leeks. And I think the government had explained to them how to mix it or showed them how to do it. The one thing these guys did was they ended up, the one thing the farmer did was he ended up adding water to the leek, to the dry leek. And so when his cattle came to lick the leek, they collapsed and died. So I would also warn you that when you do buy leeks, whatever leek it is, make sure that you store them in a cool and dry place, that they are far away from moisture. Once that leek has been rained on, whatever leek it is, if it has been rained on and it has gotten wet, don't give it to your cattle. Don't give it to your livestock. Throw it away rather. Because some of the active ingredients that are put in this leek, when they come into contact with water, and they are not coming into contact with that type of moisture inside the stomach of a cow, it comes in contact with this with moisture outside the stomach of the cow, they become poisonous and can lead to death. So it's very important that you also be very cautious when you are using these things and feeding your cattle. You need to know, you need to make sure that once the cattle are done leaking and there's still leak left in the bucket, inform your workers to get the spade, take that leek out of there, store it, and give it to them tomorrow. Never leave it just in the leaking trough and say, they'll come leak tomorrow. And then let's say in the middle of the night it rains, that leek gets wet, and then your cattle come from the field, or your cattle, since they sleep in the kraal, wake up in the morning and start leaking this. You will come find dead cattle in the entire kraal. So it's very important that you do that. But it's very important that you remain cautious. But it's also important that you also, when you're in a communal area and you've never given leek to your cattle, it's also important that you start introducing leeks to your livestock. It's just to improve their health and overall well-being. Because the best example that I was given by a senior farmer on why leeks are important, he told me, Mitchell, yourself as you are sitting there, you are tall. And I was like, yes. Do you think you got tall from just eating porridge? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, you didn't just eat porridge to get tall. Your mother was adding other active ingredients in the food you're eating. I'm sure when you eat a plate, you got your starch, you got your protein, you got your nutrients, you got your minerals in your plate. So that's why leeks are important, because they add what the cattle can't really get, what the cattle are not able to get just in grazing. Because we should remember, like I said, with phosphate, for example, some parts of Namibia is phosphate deficient. So like some of these areas, what this senior farmer would tell me, like the northern part of the country, which is very sandy, the northern and eastern part of the country is phosphate deficient, and also some parts of the southern part. So it's very important that you would give your cattle leek during the summer period, which has phosphate in it, just to help them be able to break down the grass a bit better, and to be able to extract energy out of the grass, and be able to to be able to extract that energy and convert it into fat and so forth. To convert it into meat and muscle. So it's very important. And as I said, your production leek is also used to improve your cattle weight, and to improve the cattle condition, particularly when you are trying to round off, when you have cattle that are having calves that suckle. So those are my 2 cents on this issue. I'd love to read the comments. I think next time I'll have a cattle a person who focuses on cattle nutrition, to come talk about this topic. Have yourself a good evening, guys.